Dah lah, there's already so much of distrust. Then you want to put it, I can only update it once, then I cannot update it ever again until you say I can. Who dare to update it?
Hi guys, welcome to the Are We OK podcast, where we talk about public policies in ways that are relevant to you, the man and the woman in the shopping mall and in the Mama store and other places around Malaysia. My name is Kian Ming and
I'm Peter, Mr. Money. Before we start, we just want to thank the sponsor of this show. Yeah, that will be Zeus Coffee. Yes, so in my hands, there's this, my favorite CEO latte. Yeah, you can order it via their app and pick it up from their store or delivery. Anyway, I have to say that ever since drinking Zeus, I find it hard to
switch
find
to others.
Yeah, they strike the right balance in terms of price and taste. Yeah, I mean, it's like some taste really, really good, but too expensive. Yeah, then some about the same price, but taste really bad. So it's like,
Okay.
yeah, kind of like they find the right balance. So.
Yeah, so how was your weekend? You know, any interesting things that you did?
It was Cheng Bing. Visited my auntie's grave. Yeah, I think one of the things that hit me was the fact to see the dates of the people who were born and the dates that they passed away. Particularly, there was one that struck me was one that was born in 1995 and passed away in 2004. Yeah, it just made me realize that, like, hey, you know, I guess Cheng Ming sometimes is part of a way for us to remember that our life on Earth is actually quite short.
Very short, yes.
Very, very short, right?
Very fleeting.
Very fleeting, and anything can just happen just like that. And what matters is the years that you live. Did you actually truly live to the fullest or not?
That's also something relevant to something that a wake that I attended last week. The former state assembly woman for Kuala Kubu Baru, the late YB Lee Ki Hyong, who was a 3-term Adun in Kuala Kubu Baru in Hulu, Selangor. She has been a very loyal member and leader in the DAP for a number of years. I knew her because she was at one point in time the local councillor for MPKJ in Kajang, and she lives in Sungai Long as well, which is in my former parliamentary constituency. So she died 58 of cancer. She was in remission before the last state election in 2023, and then straight after or soon after the state elections, she had a relapse, and then very soon I think the cancer really took its toll on her, and she passed away last month in March, and many people paid respects to her, and I'll forever remember her as a very small lady who was a chili padi, and somebody who many people in the DAP were afraid of, in terms of speaking to her, because she would definitely not be afraid to show her true feelings and also her opinions on whether she thought you were doing a good job or not.
Right. Yeah. Since it was Cheng Bing, and it was really a time that a lot of us were thinking about life, right? Same as you were there at the wake and stuff like that. Maybe I'll just ask this question, right? If one day there comes a day when you leave this place, what is the one sentence you hope people describe you as?
I would say, if let's say people can say, okay, he added value wherever he went. I think that would be, that would make me quite happy and know that I've led a life that has made a difference. How about for you, if I throw the question to you?
For me, it would be, he has encouraged me to pursue my dreams, to believe that things are possible if you just work for it.
He made me a lot of money through his financial
No.
right?
So basically not too far from you. It's kind of like he has made a positive impact in me. Yeah, that's the thing that I wish
that people remember
me about.
Yeah, and I think that's sort of like a good way to segue into our first sort of like conversation, which includes some comments from our previous episode. Very tricky topic, very heated topic on the issue of the KK Mart, stockings that had the word, the word Allah inscribed on 5 pairs. So, from the feedback that you've gotten and you've read in our YouTube comments as well as in the Instagram feed, what is your impression so far?
I can see that it's very polarized. We see two very different group of comments. One is the more religious side of things, and we can see that it has, for this group, it is no more even about nationalism or anything. It's just purely religion, right? I think one of the most memorable comment out of all that was one guy saying this: regardless of whatever economic growth that you're going to be talking about, or even whatever benefit you're talking about, nothing beats the one thing of protecting the name of our God, right?
So religion is the red
Number
line.
one priority,
Yes.
right? Yeah, whatever it is, that's the number one. The world can go chaos, but this is the number one thing, right? And there's the other side of it where people were more like, the more moderate ones were like, you know what? Let's just leave it to the authority. Yeah, so this is something that I've gathered. And at first I thought like, hey, maybe because it came from us where we are not Muslims, yeah. But subsequently when I saw KJ's video being posted up,
Khairy
and,
Jamaluddin,
yeah, he was just saying, he wasn't even mentioning anything. He's just saying that, maybe it's time to just let the authorities take over this.
Cool down, stand down.
Stand down right now. You've already achieved your objective. You've already shown yourself that you're protecting the
This talking
people's
about
right,
Akmal,
yeah?
the
Yes.
UMNO youth chief. Yeah.
Yeah, but even with that, I see the comments and I notice that, wow, this is getting out of hand, right? And I was very grateful that shortly after that, the Agong came out and then speak up on this and say that, it's time to just let it put to rest. Yeah.
And even I think as because of some of these bombs that were thrown at the KK Mart stores in a couple of places, after that I think the head of criminal investigation in Bukit Aman, who was I think formerly serving in Klang, he came out to actually make a very reasonable statement to say the police will go after whoever is trying to perpetrate this kind of violence in any shape or form. That's not acceptable. And I think the fact that we had to rely on Khairy, who is no longer a member of parliament, we of course accept and welcome the wisdom of the king, and also I think the very wise words of the police force, in this case the head of the criminal investigation unit, shows to me that many of the politicians were not doing their jobs, in the sense that I'm not talking about those who are inciting X, Y, and Z, but I'm talking about those that are national leaders, especially maybe the Malay leaders, the Malay political leaders, especially those in government. Really a lack of leadership in terms of coming out to try to tone down the temperature, to have their voice heard. And I think this is something that the public can see, and they will also evaluate for themselves in terms of how to interpret this lack of leadership.
Yeah. So I have some questions that I want to ask, right, regarding this. Is that, number one, we know there's a very sensitive topic, and it didn't really cross my mind until you mentioned to me actually, like, hey, why there were no other Malay leaders who came up and speak up, but instead only Khairy is the only one who spoke up, right? And he's not even part of the government anymore. He's not part of a representative of people, right?
He doesn't even have a political party.
Yeah, he's just a KOL right now.
yeah, very influential one.
Yeah, a very influential KOL, right?
Vida and all that. Yeah.
And thanks for speaking up, I would say, like, to
Sure.
a certain extent,
Yeah.
right?
Definitely appreciate that.
So, take us back to the curtain a little bit.
The Malay political leaders, all of them can see, can read the political tea leaves. They understand the Malay crowd, the majority of them quite well. And I think those who feel strongly about this would be those that would have commented on what KJ said in terms of asking Akmal to stand down and to cool the temperatures a bit. These would be the people who say, look, you can't stop me from boycotting KK Mart. And maybe their end goal would be, I want to see KK Mart being declared as a bankrupt company before I'm satisfied. Right? There may be that kind of strong prevailing sentiment, and it may not be the majority. It may be maybe a vocal 20%, but those are enough to make the Malay politicians scared, to make them very cautious about commenting on this issue. But I think Khairy took a brave step in terms of coming up. Even Shahril Hamdam came out to say, look, he's wondering why there are no religious leaders, some of the muftis, for example, who's willing to come out to say something to tone down the temperature, to say that, I condemn these kinds of violent attacks against KK Mart and the like. They are afraid in terms of their own political standing. And I think partly also because many of them don't feel they have the kind of standing, religious standing among the Malay community to be able to say something that would come across as, calming the situation, and even to the extent of taking hits from the Malay community and the Malay voters here on this particular issue, like what Khairy did, and also to add a bit more, notice that the Malay leaders in PAS and Bersatu are very quiet on this issue.
Yeah.
Why do you think that's the case?
I'm not really sure, but I remember PAS actually did mention something, but it's not so much of defending or anything. It's just more like, hey, would you like to think deeper? There seems to be some sort of a conspiracy here. That's what they said, right? Yeah. But surprising, they are the ones who came on and said even something, right? Yeah. And so now, why are they so quiet?
I think for a few reasons. Firstly, they also can read the political tea leaves, and they can see the kind of narrative and to a certain extent the infighting between UMNO youth and different leaders in Pakatan Harapan and in GPS on this issue. It is the government shooting itself in the foot by all this, so they don't need to do anything. They just stand back and let these guys fight it out. And then secondly, I think that they feel quite confident, PAS and Bersatu, at this point in time, whereby the majority of the non-Malay support are behind them, right? So they don't need to do any more. Their challenge is actually how to retain that Malay support. Maybe now I think between 60 to 80%, depending on the area, and we'll be able to see a demonstration of this in the KKB by-election that will be happening soon. So for them it is a matter of, okay, how do I want to appear a bit more moderate, especially to the non-Malay voters, to come out to try to at least not to be seen as further instigating this issue.
Right.
Yeah. So that's the other thing that I think from the comments is very clear to me. Many of the non-Malays who are commenting on this issue have the impression that, look, it was just 5 socks. Why can't we just accept the apology and move on, right? And I think that's probably not the right attitude or the right thinking to have, because you don't know, or we don't know, what the Malay community is feeling on this particular issue. And when when there was a clip posted on Instagram, the first clip that came out on my Instagram feed was about me saying that the Malay voters, the Malay community in Malaysia would be willing to forgive but not forget. And then a lot of people said, actually, we are not willing to forgive, we're not willing to forget, right? So that was actually before the next reel was released, whereby both of us said, we are in no position to tell or to advise the Malay community in Malaysia what they should or should not think, correct?
Yeah.
Right. And I think when I said forgive but not forget, it was in the spirit of wanting to get to some form of solution to this issue. Right? How can we find a way out, right? And just like how Khairy was trying to do it, I'm in my own limited way, especially as a former representative of an area that is Malay majority, I can see that they may not be so vocal, but some of them, I think, after a certain period of time, they even if, let's say, they want to continue to boycott KK Mart, I think that the feelings of anger would slowly die down, and then they then let the police investigation take its course, right? So the level of polarization I saw on this issue was really quite scary, it really shows that if our politicians don't handle this kind of narrative properly, we can easily descend into a situation whereby it's almost like a free-for-all.
I feel like there should have been a better narration coming out, because in my opinion, when I looked at it, Dr. Amal's opinion of it was quite extreme, quite harsh, which fully encapsulates the emotions. Whether does it represent the majority, I'm unclear. There's no polls that's being taken out at this point, right? But I felt that there could have been leaders who come up with a slightly more moderate response. Like, for example, where we are deeply offended. We think that there should be responsibility, there should be investigation, there should be people to take responsibility of this. But let's do it in a peaceful manner, right? Not to the extent of throwing bombs, and endangering lives. How do we actually go about with it? Like something that shows a much more intellectual and much more
Maybe a more measured way.
more
lah.
measured way. Yes, that would be a better word for it.
Yeah. So
a
let
more
me read
measured
out
way.
read out a comment from YouTube. I think quite measured, like the word that we used just now. He shares my perspective as a Muslim. Even me as a semi-religious Muslim. This is his words. Will not tolerate if anyone, a Muslim or not, is playing around with our religion or our God. It is just as simple as that, right? So this is a way for him to communicate, especially to the non-Muslim listeners of our podcast. And then she goes on to say, as a Malaysian, like Kieming said, I do agree with him that we should try to forgive but not forget. As a Malay in this country, even without Akmal turning up the heat, most of us would secretly avoid KK Mart. Because for some time, until the issue becomes old, like what I said just now. Akmal is just using the issue to get the Malay majority support and use this to show that non-Bumis don't understand that religion is not to be played around with. Right? This will later divide non-Bumi and Muslim people, which I think, he goes on to say, it is an old game that has been around for years, and it seems that for all the example that we have been able to see through or go through, the non-Bumis still don't understand how to handle this issue. Just respect the religion and don't do this kind of stuff. It is an easy solution, but the non-Bumi fail to understand. And just to go on, if I were the KK Mart owner, I would have responded in the same way, but give more emphasis on the steps in the future to avoid the same mistake. For example, educate their workers, not to play around with issues related to religion and race, so that they can report or become aware of this internally before it leaks to the public, to make sure that the suppliers understand KK Mart do not tolerate this kind of things to happen in the future and to take steps to prevent it, right? So I think, they wanted more, this person is saying they wanted more proactive actions, not just from KK Mart, but perhaps from other companies as well, to make sure that this kind of thing doesn't happen anymore in the future. Yeah. Okay, so with that, we'll stop for now. Be right back. Welcome back to the Are We OK podcast. This is a bit of a heavy episode because the next thing we're going to talk about is with regards to the citizenship amendments.
Yep.
And we actually recorded this segment last week, but because of the sensitivities of what was being discussed in Parliament and debated in Parliament, we decided not to release it only now. I think this is a good time for us to release it for you to have a better context of what were some of the things happening behind the scenes. And also maybe after we show this segment, we're going to come back and we're going to discuss what happened after we recorded that episode. What are some of the latest developments, and what do we hope to expect from the parliamentary debate that will take place at the next parliamentary session over these issues. So have a listen to this. We're wearing different shirts for that particular episode, and we'll double back and come back and discuss the latest developments on this particular issue. So stay tuned and let's look at this segment. One of the things that have been receiving a lot of coverage over social media, the news cycle, is the proposed citizenship amendments to the federal constitution. Yeah, so just for our audience benefit, who may not have been following up on this issue or reading up on this issue, the proposed amendments are divided into two categories. One set of amendments, which I think everyone agrees on, which is positive, is to include and to make it absolutely sure and certain that children who are born to Malaysian mothers overseas, that means Malaysian mothers, the father is not a Malaysian, when you register them, they would be eligible for Malaysian citizenship. Right now, that's not the case. If you're a Malaysian mother, your kid is born overseas, you're married to a non-Malaysian, even if you register, the citizenship is not automatic. So that corrective measure is there. That's good. But the other set of constitutional amendments basically takes away the right for those babies who, let's say, are found in Malaysia, let's say on the streets, abandoned and all that, and they have nowhere else to go. they are not citizens of another country, that those amendments actually take away their right to even apply for citizenship. That means they don't have the right to get the citizenship as a matter of their constitutional rights. So for this part, I think is very cruel. It deprives a lot of people, especially in places like Sabah, and even people in the B40 community that for whatever reason they don't register their kids. Sometimes children are born out of wedlock; they are not properly married.
Yep.
And then this becomes an issue that generations will have to deal with. So I think on the second part, many NGOs have expressed their deep concern, and even one of the most important NGOs that have been advocating for the First Amendment, the automatic citizenship for children born to Malaysian mothers overseas, they have said, Family Frontiers, they have said, if you're going to lump in the other constitutional amendments, we rather we will reject it. We reject it, but their preference is that they can decouple, meaning you have the First Amendment, but the rest you don't put it in. Yeah.
Wow.
So what is your take on this issue from your reading of this the articles on this issue?
For me, it doesn't make sense lah. It's very cruel, like you say. Yeah, because I personally have met people who are born out of wedlock and they did not get registered, or either the parents are drug addicts. They just did not do it, right? Like there was this one case that truly I've met is I think the mother was a Sabah Sarawak, came here or something like that, and she was so helpless. Met dad, taken care of her for a while, became a drunkard, get the kid, run away.
Were they officially married? Probably not, right?
No, and the boy is like 17 years old right now.
No documents.
No documents, no nothing. How I feel about it is that now you're not asking for some big constitutional amendment. I mean, it's big. I'm not saying that it's not big, but not big as in like you're not talking about any Tom, Dick, and Harry born here. You're talking about specific circumstances. Yeah. Babies that are abandoned, babies that are not registered. Specific, right? And you're talking about a helpless group of people. So, and this topic has been going on for a very, very, very long time lah. Only today with social media more widely spread that we are more aware. But it has been for a very, very long time, right?
So let me draw you behind the curtain lah, as to why this constitutional amendment, the positive one, came with a lot of the negative ones lah. The ecosystem within the Ministry of Home Affairs, which is the main ministry in charge of this particular issue, registration and citizenship, they are quite conservative in nature. They want to hold the line to say that we do not want people from other countries to anyhow get accepted to be Malaysian citizens. We need to put safeguards. We don't want to open up the floodgates, so to speak. Suddenly refugees from Myanmar or from other places suddenly come in and then they take advantage of Malaysia's hospitality. Right? So that's the kind of thinking that they have. Maybe some of it is legitimate because there are some security concerns. But some of it may not be, especially if, let's say, we want to address the low birth rate issue that you talked about just now, right?
Yeah.
We may want to have more open policies in this regard. Australia, Singapore, they have much more progressive policies in terms of welcoming immigrants. But the reason why this is relevant is because I think people within the Home Ministry ecosystem would have told the minister this. Okay, we are okay with the First Amendment. We accept it because the numbers are not really that big. Malaysian mothers overseas, they are married to non-Malaysians. On the most part, these would be people in the M40 T20 category. Mostly I'm not saying all. Right? So the numbers would not be that big. So we can process those and that's okay. Anyway, Family Frontiers has a case that that's going up all the way to the federal court that may be able to, if the federal court upholds the High Court decision to recognize the rights of Malaysian to kids born to Malaysian mothers overseas, then actually this constitutional amendment is not necessary. But at the same time, the Ministry of Home Affairs would have told the Minister, Saifuddin Nasution, who's a senator, kalau nak buat ni, okay, you have to give us a concession. The concession is the stateless children no automatic citizenship rights. And the reason is because all these applications, right, they put a lot of burden on the Ministry of Home Affairs in terms of processing these cases. There's a lot of political pressure coming in from politicians as well, saying that, hey, this case is legitimate, you should look into it, you should approve it. I get the Home Minister to go and support, all these kinds of issues. And to the Home Minister's credit, he has approved a lot of these applications over the past year or so. He has done his work to the extent possible. Right? But what I think the Home Ministry wants to do is put a stop to that.
Right.
Meaning, there's no automatic citizenship. That would decrease the burden on us in terms of application, because a lot of things we can just reject outright. And that is the compromise that's being made here. So you I know you are beginning to understand, but you don't accept it.
Yeah. It's kind of like, I'm not willing to feed my child because I don't want to go outside and buy. I don't want to drive the car. Yeah, kind of like
the reason is, I'm making you drive the car outside to buy all this stuff, and it's a burden. Is
for me to drive the car.
Yes. So,
but you're talking about life at stake. I mean,
the calculus is different. The calculus on the part of the civil servants, I think, is much more in terms of the pressures that we are facing. You have to see things from our point of view.
So
the
what
minister
is it?
has to advocate or protect or put certain lines so that he can continue to have the support of the Ministry of Home Affairs. That is, I think, what is happening behind the scenes. So you get it? You see? You may not accept it, but that is actually, I think, largely what is happening.
Okay, I'll reconfirm. So I know that it's I'm
on the right track. Yes.
I'm on the right track in terms of thinking. Okay, so if I were to make an automatic eligibility, it means that there's gonna be extra work involved.
Correct.
Yeah, and it's burdening. It's troublesome. Yes, a lot of adjustment.
Yes.
Right. Now, so basically the bargain here is, in a way, okay, I'm gonna relieve you of this, but at least you let me get half of it pass through. So at least this one,
which is not very burdensome. The first one is not very burdensome because, like I said, the numbers are not very high.
Yeah, not very high.
But the second one, with a lot of with large numbers, you help me out. You just don't allow for automatic citizenship anymore among the stateless. That is the bargain. You understand?
Yeah, so it's correct lah. But I cannot accept. Yeah.
And I think the truth of the matter is that many NGOs cannot accept this. Many people in the civil society cannot accept this. And I think many MPs, especially from those from Pakatan Harapan, also cannot accept this.
I mean, if there's a deeper level of reasoning like national security or...
No, it's not.
Or it's going to add on fiscal burden to the government, I still feel that, But if you're just talking about extra work, you're talking about life at stake.
It's not extra work only. It's the pressure that the civil servant faces, because they get a lot of pressure, political pressure, from different people advocating for these kinds of cases, including people like Family Frontiers, including others within the ecosystem that are advocating for more progressive policies.
Why not agree on it, then set up a proper system to implement, and so that you don't have to deal with this pressure, but say, wait, look, the system is going to be set up.
Yep. So like any civil service that processes citizenship issues, it's not just common to Malaysia, but other countries as well. You're never going to be able to dedicate enough resources, and there may be some things which you can do to make it a little bit more transparent. For example, if you want to prove that this person is actually the son of a Malaysian father, for example, born in Malaysia, you can do a DNA test. And then you can use the basis of the DNA test to recognize. But that means that the DNA test process must be foolproof. You cannot go and pay some clinic to go and adjust the results, right? So then all this becomes part and parcel of a larger conversation that is actually not taking place now within the context of this amendment.
Right. So, yes, now I understand. Basically, setting up the system itself it's
also not easy.
It's crazy amount of work. Yes, I do understand that. Yes, and just like what we said earlier, we shouldn't put ourselves in their shoe. And I totally understand. But on a humanitarian
from
standpoint,
a principle standpoint, I agree with you. We should not we should decouple.
Work towards it? Like, shouldn't it be I mean, it should be like, no, it's hard to achieve that goal, but let us work towards it. It may take time, but let's work towards it.
Okay.
Not let's not do it.
So this is what the Home Minister has said publicly and also privately, from what I understand. He has said, look, you accept this amendment. What I'll try to do is I'll make sure that the civil service will process as many of these outstanding cases as possible. Because that is the budi bicara that they have within the Home Ministry.
Right.
But the challenge is, after you approve these constitutional amendments, what is it to prevent some members of the civil service to say, look, this is the law, this is the constitution, right? It's already been passed, which means my budi bicara is I follow the law, I follow the constitutional amendment, all these cases I reject, right? And the Home Minister may not be in a position to do anything about it because he's the one that was pushing for this constitutional amendment. So again, let me draw you behind the curtain. Then what is the process to get enough support for this amendment? You need to have a 2/3 support in Parliament, which currently the government has, just looking at the MPs lah. And I think this is the deliverable that the Home Minister wants to give to the Prime Minister, right? His approach would be to say, look, I want to get broad-based support as possible, including getting support from the opposition, right? So then, how do the parties within the unity government respond to this? Okay, the role of individual leaders and MPs within the party becomes then very important. So let's say lah, for the sake of argument, let's use DAP lah. DAP within the government, DAP has the largest number of MPs, 40 MPs, right? What happens if, let's say, enough MPs, a majority, 80, even 90%, maybe excluding those in cabinet itself, but maybe even including those in cabinet, to say that they come out to say that, look, I'm willing to resign my position as an MP and as a minister rather than to vote for this bill. To make that position, I'm willing to sailang lah, so to speak, right? And then, if there are enough of these MPs, or even don't need to go so far lah, just say when comes time to vote, I will leave the hall. And for constitutional amendments, it's not 2/3 of who is present; it's 2/3 of the entire 222 members of parliament. So by not voting for it, right, or by leaving the hall, basically not being present, you're actually not giving support to it.
Yep.
So if, let's say, enough DAP MPs are willing to do that, that message can be communicated to the Prime Minister, and to say this is the position that the party is taking, and what is your response? And if, let's say, enough PKR backbenchers have a similar position, if enough Amanah backbenchers have a similar position, although there are not many, a lot of them are in government, most of them are in government, then suddenly you can see that even among the government, there's a certain proportion that will not vote or support for this for this amendment, right? So then the calculus changes already, right? You're not quite sure of your 2/3 anymore, right? And then if, let's say, and I can tell you for a fact that the other side, the opposition, Perikatan Nasional, knows that there are some MPs who will not support this on the side of the government. If, let's say, you were Perikatan Nasional, what would you do? Would you support this bill? What if, let's say, I was a sneaky sort of like opposition leader lah? What I would do is this. I would tell Saifuddin, the Home Minister, I think privately lah, okay, I can support, right? Publicly, you remain neutral. You don't say this or that, and then at the last minute, if you put it to a vote, my guys walk out, and you lose. And together with the backbenchers who are walking out, the bill gets defeated. Imagine the damage to the reputation of the government. It won't bring down the government, but it will be a real big embarrassment, right? And if, let's say, the Prime Minister knows that this possibility may happen, what's the best course of action? Don't table the bill.
Right.
So I think that may be one way in which this issue can be sort of like, for lack of a better word, kick the can down the road lah. If you don't have consensus now, you don't vote for the bill, you don't table it, do something to decouple it, put only the first constitutional amendment in.
Leave the option for the second one to fight for tomorrow, right?
Well, if
in that sense,
if for me, I would just leave the second one and put it in the dustbin. yeah, just push
it
for the first
doesn't look
one.
like a problem that can be solved in the near future, right?
Yes. So just focus on the first one. Give the citizenship rights to the mothers. And in fact, that constitutional amendment may be superfluous because, like I said, later this year the federal court will make a judgment on this.
Right.
And if the federal court judgment is supportive of what the Family Frontiers case, then that court, the decision has been made already. You don't need the constitutional amendment. That is the law of the land. That's the interpretation of the constitution.
Wow, that's high level maneuvers.
Sure. Yeah, that's what you come to this podcast to do, right? To for us to bring you behind the curtain and for you to understand a little bit more about the politics of these kinds of situations.
Just now, that whole maneuver, was there any case study before, like in Malaysia?
Yes, I've been part of some of these maneuvers before on the receiving end when I was negotiating with Tony Pua to have a CSA, confidence and supply agreement with then Prime Minister Muhyiddin's government, right? So we could see already the maneuverings, and I think and this reflects also on this kind of situation whereby because Pakatan knew that Muhyiddin was weak and he had lost majority support, there was no way that they were going to support him to continue as Prime Minister. Which means if Muhyiddin is still the leader of PN, he would use any opportunity to embarrass the same people who brought him down. Right? UMNO and Pakatan Harapan.
Wow.
Yeah? You get it?
Okay.
So anything, any promises, that privately these guys have expressed to Saifuddin or anyone within Anwar Circle that they will support this constitution amendment, I think you need to think carefully on whether this is to be trusted or not. Okay, so yeah, Peter, we've seen that recording. We've maybe can think about what we were thinking about when we recorded that segment. So after that recording and after what transpired, in terms of updating of the amendments, what is your response? What's your reaction?
I was like, wow, very accurate, huh? As you predicted, they won't debate it. Yeah. So they were just not table it at all, and then just left it out just like that.
But they had some amendments.
Yeah.
They took away some of, I think, the amendments that were the most, offensive to some of the NGO community, especially those that said, if you are a stateless child, the automatic ability for you to become a citizen if you are found abandoned in Malaysia, that right will be taken away from you. Right. So I think that it was good that that particular amendment was taken out, but there were still other 3 other amendments that I think the NGOs are still having some problems with. One of them is, for example, if let's say you are a child of a PR, and if let's say you are considered stateless, would the current amendments still say you don't have a right to citizenship in Malaysia? Of course, some would say, hey, PR is okay. What you can go and get the citizenship of your parents. Either one or the other. They are citizens of another country. But what happens if let's say you are in a situation where you have been abandoned by your parents, or your parents divorce? You don't know where one is or the other is.
That's right.
Your paperwork is not accurate. And this is actually the situation that many people in Sabah, some in Sarawak, some, who are products of, marriages that were not registered. The mother, is a PR. The father may be a citizen, but you don't know who he is.
That's right.
Right. Then what happens to these kids? Right. So I think that's something that's still something to be discussed and debated. I think the best way to do this in terms of going through the amendments, which has been suggested by some NGOs, is to actually refer the constitutional amendments back to the relevant parliamentary select committee. And in this case, it would be the select committee headed by Yeo Bin, the parliamentary select committee on women and family. Right, because that is the kind of context where all these intricacies can be discussed and the proper recommendations can be made to the government.
Yeah. So, for yourself, right, after recording the episode and then subsequently later to see everything unfold, What are your personal observation of what has happened to add on to the episode that we did?
I think a couple of new things to add. Firstly, the Home Minister Saifuddin Nasution, he went on Kelas Kejap and he gave, I think, a pretty good explanation on the different reasons for the initial amendments to be tabled, and then also some of the considerations that made one or two of the amendments that were more controversial to be taken out. Right. So I think he gave a pretty good explanation. At the same time, I think for those of you who have watched that podcast, or if you haven't, please go and watch it. It also confirms to me my initial suspicion that he has to table these amendments with a very intentional kind of thinking in terms of what the civil servants will be willing or not willing to do. Right. So if, let's say, like what we said in the segment, in the clip before this, definitely the civil servants are facing a lot of pressure in terms of all these cases that are coming onto their plates. And one consideration at the time would be, if let's say you take away the automatic right, in that case it was for citizens, now it's for PR, it would decrease the workload on the civil servants and the pressure on the civil servants in these particular cases. I think what the minister shared in the Kelas Kejap podcast, some bits here and there, some direct, some not so direct, confirmed that suspicion.
Right.
And I think this is something that we have to manage as a whole. And also, when I tweeted some of these things out on Twitter, of course, Twitter is a different kind of animal, different kind of creature. There were many people who came back and said, basically questioned me or asked, are you saying that the civil servants are like that, X, Y, and Z? That they are not willing to process for X, Y, and Z reasons. And I saw this kind of reaction as being quite offensive to the civil servants, because they are saying that civil servants, yes, is their right, is the right of these kids, these foundlings to have, the right of citizenship as it stands under the federal constitution. But you also have to put yourself in the shoes of the civil servants when they have thousands or tens of thousands of cases whereby the documentation is not complete. You don't know what the proper procedures are in terms of whether a DNA test would be accepted or not, and your superiors are not willing to put their necks on the line to support whatever recommendation that's going to be made on an individual case by case basis. You are going to be put in a very tough spot, right? And if, let's say, I'm going to be blamed, meaning the civil servants are going to be blamed for all these kinds of actions that may be as a result of political leaders not being able to make decisions in a transparent way, then it's
why should I risk myself? Right?
Yeah, exactly. So I think just like the sock issue, right? I think both sides need to understand each other better. The activists on the one hand, yes, I think they are on very strong human rights and constitutional basis, but at the same time they also have to understand the kind of pressures that the civil servants are facing on a daily basis to process all this. The kind of abuse that some of them may be getting when applicants go there and they find that the process is not very transparent, and it may not be the fault of the civil servants who are at the front line. It may be their bosses that are the decision makers in the back that doesn't have to face this kind of public pressure.
Right.
So that there needs to be much more, I think, understanding and acceptance on some of these challenges.
Right. So I have a question, right? Like when we actually have a deeper look at this thing, right? Wouldn't the ministry actually want to maybe like say hire a consultant or something like that to come in and redesign the whole process? So with clearer process comes with better accountability and transparency to make decision, and make it much more of a top-down, directive to say, hey, this is the way that we're going to go for.
I think that can partly solve it in the sense that the decision-making processes would be more transparent, not just to the civil servants, but also to the larger public. Then you know exactly what grounds you're being rejected on and what grounds you're being accepted on, right? And I think this kind of approach, right, also has certain limits, because at the end of the day, there still has to be some discretion on the part of the civil servants and the top decision makers, including politicians, because the minister has the right to actually sign off on all these things and even override some of the decisions that has been recommended by the civil servants on some of these issues, which is why a lot of people end up petitioning or asking the Home Minister to act on this. But again, the Home Minister has limited time. I think Saifuddin has tried very hard to expedite the cases, but still, these cases are, you can say never ending, right? Because there's always people who are born out of wedlock and having this kind of statelessness issue. He's trying his best to push forward this issue. But like what Khairy and Shahril mentioned, if let's say Saifuddin is no longer the Home Minister, do we have any guarantee that the next Home Minister will be as open as him? So I think we need to see more transparency in terms of the data and the processes.
So just for the audience understanding, right? Because you have been a minister before, a deputy minister before, and you end up having the chance to work with ministry on ground, and stuff
civil
like
servants,
that. Yeah, civil servants. And I always hear these two things, right? I always thought that civil service, many of them are maybe not very efficient, right? But when I talk to you guys, you guys already mentioned that they are some of the best and brightest people that you work with there, right? So how does this whole relationship work at the moment you go in and then you see that, let's say in this case, like Saifuddin's case, right? It's quite a big change that he has to make, or certain things that are not the usual way of doing stuff, right? What are some of the most common challenges that you will face, and how do you actually go about with it?
Okay, so common challenges would include things that are found in other organizations as well. Once you're used to a certain way of doing things, it may be hard for you to change to a way of doing things that's very, very different. Not to say it can't be done, but there's a lot of inertia there, a lot of momentum that has already been built towards doing things one particular way, right? So that would be one challenge. Another one would be, who is going to take the blame at the end of the day?
Right.
Right, and a lot of the time, the civil servants feel that the playing field is not even, in the sense that they will get the blame if something goes wrong. If something goes right, the minister will get the credit.
Oh.
Right, so that is something that I think many civil servants feel that they need to protect themselves against.
Right.
Which is why most of the time their decisions are more on the conservative side, meaning they would try to be cautious and not interpret the law in a way that is too quote unquote generous.
Right, I see. Yeah. So I've heard of this case, right, where there was mentioned that because while they stay in the same ministry for a very long time, the boss changes every 5 years.
Sometimes even sooner. Yeah.
Yeah. So even sooner. Yeah. Once the boss change, then maybe you have been like trying to push through certain change for the past boss, and then suddenly the boss change, right? Now you're the scapegoat.
Yeah.
Does it really go like that?
You're the scapegoat, or the effort that you spend on wanting to change the policy, a new boss or new minister comes in, then they scrap the whole thing.
Yeah.
But then you're like,
then now you're the most hated person in the whole department because you championed it.
Yeah, and why did I try so hard in the first place? Right. So at the end of the day, the best thing for you to do, in terms of wanting to save yourself some stress and also not get in hot soup, is to just not rock the boat lah.
Wait lah.
Wait lah.
Wait till someone lead it first.
Yeah, and if let's say somebody were to lead it, a minister and all that, you want to see the minister put skin in the game, right? To see how much effort he or she is willing to put in the game, and I think this is something that we'll discuss at the final segment of this episode, to see, for example, how much effort Rafizi Ramli has put into the PADU database. So we can use that as an example and a point of discussion. But maybe to sort of like wrap this up, I think the discussion will continue. The debates will continue to take place. I think it was not very, honest of Perikatan Nasional, led by the past Secretary General Taqiyuddin Hassan, to criticize the government for not allowing the debate to go on late at night, on this particular amendment. I think we're not even sure about the position that Perikatan would take on this issue. Why try to make political capital out of it? If they were really serious about trying to address this issue, they would want this issue to be taken to the Parliamentary Select Committee and discussed properly, because they also have members in the Select Committee, right? And then use that platform to again negotiate outcomes which you think are fair to the affected people and the stakeholders in this particular issue.
Yep.
So heavy topic. The discussion has not ended yet, but I hope that our discussion, both in this episode and in the pre-recorded segment before this, would give you a better sense of how these kinds of internal discussions take place from a policy standpoint with regards to the relevant stakeholders and decision makers. So be right back after this. Welcome back. We're going to quickly talk about an issue which perhaps many of you may not have read in the headlines because of all the other interesting and exciting political news. But it involves PUSPAKOM.
Yes.
What do you, when I mention PUSPAKOM, Peter, what is your initial thought or reaction?
Wow. Not great, I have to say. Because recently I bought a used car, right? So I had to go through the whole inspection thing and stuff like that. To a certain extent, you literally will forget that they're actually a private company. They behave more like they are
Government.
they are kings.
So was it easy for you to get an appointment?
You have to go through runner. I think the runner system is still very prevalent. Yeah, you can do it yourself, but going through a runner just makes things like easier per se.
Sure.
Now, number two is that you can see that the services that you are getting is very, in my opinion, bare minimal customer service. That's what I mean. Yeah, bare minimum. If you do not know what to do, it is treated as if like, why you don't know one like that.
So this was to, let me just have clarity on this. This was for you to buy a second-hand car from somebody else.
Yes, that's
okay.
right.
Why? And I assume you knew this person, or did you know this person?
Yeah. My brother-in-law sold me the car.
Okay. If let's say you had an alternative, which was to go and buy a second-hand car from one of the sort of like big second-hand or used car players in Malaysia, whether it's Maituka or Kasem, why didn't you use that route?
I mean, I got it cheaper.
Okay.
That's the main reason.
Because it's a personal
it's a personal.
transaction.
Yeah, so he sold me at the price that he would sell it to them.
Okay.
Got it cheaper. Yeah, but this also got me thinking the other thing, right? If you actually look at the whole buy to car or custom car model, I think one of the most important things for a lot of people, especially direct at the retail level, is the trust of the quality of the car. Which, if you actually look at it, what custom kind of give you that kind of confidence is
comfort level.
Yeah, comfort level is that they actually check the car. They actually make sure that the car is in good condition or at what level of condition. Which actually, you think about it, is actually PUSPAKOM's job. But why do we not trust PUSPAKOM?
There's a history behind it,
So that got me thinking, right? Because if you look at Japan, if you buy Recon car, there's this whole Japan certificate thing where they tell you specifically where all the issues, and people really trust that cert, right? Yeah. So here's where I feel that as a consumer, PUSPAKOM is almost like something you just do it because paperwork required to do so, not because you trust the service.
Correct. And I think this extends not just to inspection of vehicles for sale in the second-hand car market, but also things like inspection of commercial vehicles, your taxis, your buses and whatnot. And people have complained, long queues, you have to get runner to get an appointment. You're not really quite sure whether the inspection is done in a way that is fully transparent and so on and so forth. So I think the reason why we wanted to bring up this issue was last week, the Minister of Transport, Anthony Loke, announced that later this year, PUSPAKOM's monopoly in this sector would come to an end. Yes, they still have the ability to do these kind of inspections, but the government will open up the market for other players to come in, other players to do this vehicle inspection process, VIP. And I think this would be good in the sense that, consumers will have more choices.
That's right.
If let's say one place is full, they can take it to another place. And at the same time, I think the government has learned from past experiences to be able to put in quite a robust set of parameters that new players who want to enter into this space must fulfill in terms of conditions and whatnot.
Yeah. I think it will. I think just by doing that itself, government will actually earn more money, in my opinion. Because we all know that the runner part there's a lot of
hanky-panky.
A lot of hanky-panky. Like for example, because the rules are not as clear. I mean, like literally, it's not as clear, right? So because of that, you actually get a runner so that you can make sure it's taken care of.
Sure.
Yeah. and that money is being paid to another smaller company that actually works with the runner, and you're not sure whether the money goes into tax or not also.
Probably
right?
not. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's an economic rent that's enjoyed by somebody else other than
That's
government.
right. Yeah. So all these kind of things are. I think just by doing this itself, it will kind of kill underground economy lah. A particular kind of underground
A
economy.
very
lah.
inefficient way of doing this kind of
And
business.
there should be more better tax collection system with that itself, because everything is much more recorded. Yeah, and also in my opinion, it will also lead to people maybe having certain choices and say that, hey, this particular brand punya vehicle inspection, we can trust it for being much more stringent, or this one is much more what, right? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it could create a whole new economy in that sense.
So I think the devil is always in the detail, which is why I think it's important for when the full specs of the document are released later this month for different people who want to bid for this vehicle inspection license. We need to know what are the kinds of parameters, right? So one example, and I really support the initiative, as a whole. That was announced by the Minister of Transport. But I read somewhere, I read in one of the news reports that there is this condition that's going to be set, under this policy. I'm not sure whether it still can be changed or not. Is this the following? Pemegang lesen, that means the vehicle inspection, license holder, tidak dibenarkan menawarkan perkhidmatan, pembaikan kenderaan motor, pengubahsuaian, penjualan alat ganti, penjualan kereta serta sebarang transaksi yang berkaitan demi menjaga integriti. So this was a part and parcel of the press statement that was provided for after the announcement by Anthony Loke. So to me, to sort of like do an interpretation, a policy interpretation, what that statement said is, you are not, if let's say you are in the business of reselling cars,
Yep.
you're in the business of repairing cars, you're in the business of selling car parts, you are not allowed to take part in this tender process because there's a conflict of interest.
That's right.
But to me, it is not really such a progressive policy, because just because you are involved in, let's say, for the sake of argument, selling second-hand cars in the market, yes, there is a potential of conflict of interest in the sense that if a car comes in and the quality may not be so good, you will still pass it from a vehicle inspection standpoint because you want to sell it. But those kinds of issues can be mitigated. For example, I say that if let's say you are going to inspect the car that you want to sell, make sure that there is a warranty that you give to the consumer. 1-2 years, whatever you're comfortable in giving that kind of warranty, right? And this would give the consumer a certain level of comfort. And at the same time, if you think about it from a cost perspective, right? When you want to roll out these vehicle inspection centers across the country, rural as well as urban, the people who would be in a good place to do this would be those people with already existing outlets.
Yep.
Right? People who, are already selling second-hand cars, maybe some selling car parts, others have showrooms, right? Then to make the effort less costly, to make it even more efficient in some ways, why not allow some of these existing players to take part in the tender and to have safeguards to minimize these conflict of interest, and from a larger policy standpoint, right, be able to roll out as good or if not a better product compared to what we have today. Right. So for example, nowadays the market does trust Kasem and MyTuka quite a bit, right? They have a good track record. Everything is digitalized. They get their payments quite quickly. There's a warranty process involved, and these are international best practices, right? So why not loosen up the policy to allow some of these players to go in to make that bid, but put in the safeguards so that these conflict of interest issues can be mitigated and reduced.
Yeah.
Right.
Do you think there's any solution? Because I myself also was kind of cracking my head a little bit about it. Because, yeah, to a certain extent, because I'm a seller, I will definitely have the incentive to want to approve something. Number two, if I'm a car parts guy, well, just to make more profit, I'll keep telling you that your car has a problem. suggest you change it with my workshop that's just right next door. And after I'll sell your parts that still well. Yeah. So these kind of things can happen, and we are not short of these kind of horror stories, right?
That's where I think with the advent of technology, with the advent of different kinds of apps that you can use and whatnot, this is where I think these companies can put in good value propositions, right? To say that, look, not only do I have a warranty for your car, but also for your spare parts. I also give you an assurance that if, let's say, you take my inspection and you go to another company, the company is able to offer you even better offer, then I would match it. Right? So some kind of friendly competition in the ecosystem where the rights of the consumers are safeguarded. And if, let's say, you can even put in things like AI detection tools in terms of spare parts and whatnot, that the average consumer can also use to upgrade and improve their knowledge on different car components. I think this can also be part and parcel of the ecosystem.
Right.
And of course, moving ahead, we also want to think of how this system later on can be adapted and improve once you get a lot of EVs in the marketplace. Because for EVs, your spare parts actually will be quite minimal. The most important thing would be the condition of your battery.
Yes.
Right. So what inspection processes do we want to put in place to make sure that when you buy a second-hand EV, for example, the battery quality is still maintained at a certain level, that it won't deplete at a rate that's quite fast, just like your handphone, right? After 2 or 3 years, you can see that the battery recharging capabilities are much less. So these are the kind of policy things that we need to think about as this new licenses are being issued.
So here's where the question comes in, right? Because when I was selling my car at the time, I was buying the car at the time, it got me thinking, actually, what's the real purpose of this vehicle inspection thing, right? And I know what is it for. Definitely the standard answer is to make sure that your car is safe for the road, right?
It's not a lemon.
Yeah, it's not a lemon and stuff like that. But in my pure honest opinion, I don't think the work process matches the purpose. Because the first thing they want you to do is to tear off your tinted windows, right? What is that going to do with the safety of
Nothing to do with safety.
Nothing to do with safety, all right? Number two, as far as I'm concerned, what they are checking is brake light and then some very minimal. It's
very minor stuff.
Very minor. It's so minor that I think my normal car service covers more things. That's what I'm thinking. And I think Customs offer or Tukar's offer of it is covering more things as well. So it actually got me thinking the next thing is that, is it really even necessary to even start off with? Now, then just like what you say, right? If we were to match back with that, the original purpose of why we are doing it, then now the question is there even a conflict of interest if, let's say, we were to break this down and say that it can be done in car workshops, it can be done in, as long as, let's say, even if you're a mechanic or whatnot. And this could actually make things better, because to a certain extent, if I'm a small mechanic, I'm a little SME, this could increase my source of revenue. That's number one. Number two, it may encourage me to kind of regulate my business a little bit more, right? Because it requires me to register for a new license. I will be paying my tax more on time. I will be needed to do much more reporting, and therefore less fraud in the whole market to a certain extent. So could this end up give birth to a different thing if, let's say, we were to go back to the real question,
purpose,
the original purpose, right?
Yeah. So just to let you know, when I was living and studying in the United States in North Carolina, when we had to go through the process of buying a car, actually the vehicle inspection, right, we could take it to any petrol station. Any petrol station with a sort of like a workshop attached, we can go there. They will go and do the checking for a fee. They will give the endorsement, right? So I don't think we're at the stage yet where we can do it at any petrol station. There will be probably abuses of things in this nature that Malaysians are very good at doing. But we should move towards a process where there's greater trust in the system.
Or take it back to the manufacturing. Like Honda, take back a Honda Center or something like that, right?
That could be one way, but like if, let's say, we want to do like what you say, to allow more economic activity to be to take place in the smaller workshops and whatnot, right? then we should go towards a situation where the smaller guys, the SMEs, can get involved. In terms of doing this kind of vehicle inspection. There would be ways in which we can track this online, and I think as technology gets better, and as the processes get also smoother, especially when we move to an EV kind of stage, right? Then there will be more room for this kind of policy innovations. But in the meantime, I think we can look forward to just having more vehicle inspection options. Done in a way that's faster, more transparent, more efficient.
And don't scold the customer when the customer
yes,
go and inspect a vehicle, right?
Don't scold the customer. The customer can feel confident.
Yeah.
It can be a process that can be done in comfort. You don't have to stress out about getting runner. If let's say this one is crowded, you go to another one, right? And of course, improve some of those conditions to make it a little bit more flexible, but mitigate the effects of possible conflicts of interest. Right, so I think that's something for us to look out for. The policy details will be released later this month. I think the bids will have to go in by June, and probably in the second half of the year we'd be able to see more vehicle inspection licenses being handed out to good and reputable companies. So be right back. Welcome back to the final segment of this episode of Are We Okay? And we're going to talk about PADU. Been engaging on this issue since PADU was released or open for registration on the 2nd of January this year, and have been following the progress, some improvements, other gaps that have not really been addressed. And the registration date, the deadline of 31st of March has come and gone. And to PADU's credit, or the people who are behind the registration of PADU, they got above the 10 million mark. I think at the end of the day, yesterday, the total number of registrants was 10.6 or 10.7 million.
Yep.
Out of a total workforce of about 21 million. And the press release that was released today by the Minister of Economy, Rafizi Ramli, basically said that using the 10.6 million database, PADU is also able to expand the number of data points to include more than 17 million people, 17.6 million people, I think, in the larger data lake that he has referred to in his previous press conferences. So, we have about between 17 to 18 million users, so to speak. So, maybe before we go into the details, what is your impression in terms of the PADU sort of like timeline from January the 2nd until now, until the 31st of March?
Well, we can see that originally when it first was launched, they were pretty confident about it. And therefore there wasn't too much of like hard push. I mean, just talk a lot, and stuff like that. But not much of like really, really pushing it. But I think we really saw the push coming in about March.
Yeah, the last 2 weeks maybe.
Yeah, last 2 weeks. Then we started seeing like they really, really pushed it.
A lot more advertisement.
Yeah, a lot more advertisement. Yeah, a lot more media coverage on it and stuff like that. And being a media person, we know when the media effort is picking up, right? And we can see that moment the media effort is picking up. So I was actually quite surprised that they actually managed to cross the 10 million mark. Yeah, because prior to that, I think it was like the last I heard was about 8 million or something like that. Stopped at there. Yeah. Then after that, within about a month or so, then there was a spurt, right?
Yeah.
So the question is whether will this help us to implement the targeted subsidies on time? Yeah. What about yourself? Yeah.
So a few more technical questions that I have after the 31st of March. The first thing is, out of the 10.6 million people who registered, I'm interested to know how many actually filled up their information to the full, in terms of all 37 categories, and how much of the information is actually accurate, and how do you verify the accuracy of the information? I'll be very transparent. I registered for PADU, but I don't feel the need for me to put in the relevant information at this point in time, because there are too many fields, and I think it would be good for the government to assure me that they have access to the correct and updated information through my EPF records, through my tax records, through other records that I have with government. I think that would be what I'm waiting for. Of course, I also realize that I'm not the targeted group in the sense that I won't be eligible for subsidies, right? So how about you? What was your, have you registered for PADU, and what is your approach?
So I registered for it, but just like you, I did not update it. I think I was truly asking myself why I did or did not do it. I think the main question is that there's this question about trust, because simply because I think when it was first started, the time they did talk about it like they collaborate with many other agencies to collect the data, and from what I've seen is that the data about me is almost non-existent. I think, put it this way, my bank or JPJ knows more about me than the system knows about me, right? And that got me wondering, like, hey, so where is all this data coming from, and how are you handling my data, right? That became a question. And subsequently, there were also a lot of news coverage that talks about it. They say that they are using a very old approach to deal with it. So there's a lot of security concerns. And since all these are not linked together, it's independent. So why do I want to give you the information to allow to create a weak link for myself, right?
And potentially get hacked and
get hacked and everything, and you're asking for very sensitive details, even my bank account, right? It's not like you just have to fill an address, you ask me for a bank account and the rest of the other things, right? So it's like, whoa, like,
and you're not alone in this, in the sense that even the Sarawak state government came out to express concern about this.
Yes.
Right. Initially, it was their Minister for Tourism, and then later, I think the Sarawak State Government issued a statement, expressing their concerns, which was, I think, respected by Rafizi. But it really, shows the kind of lack of trust in this larger process, and I think as long as those issues are not addressed, the continued lack of trust in the usage of PADU will be a challenge that the current government will have to face. Also, another technical question, right? Even if, let's say, I filled in the information that I think is correct, how will the government actually be able to verify the information? Let's say, I fill in information to say, I have ancillary income from rental, and the rental income I get is 5,000 ringgit. So is the government going to take this at face value? Are there other ways in which they can verify this, in terms of checking on the properties I own, for example? If, let's say, I'm going to say, my monthly income is actually X amount. Let's say, I just put there 5,000 ringgit, whereas my actual income is 15,000 ringgit.
Yeah.
Is there any way for the government to verify that the true income earned, in terms of pulling that data from EPF? And if that's the case, how long would that data cleaning process take? Because this is not all of this can be automated. Some of it will have to be done manually. Some of it you can use some AI algorithms to help you process. But at the end of the day, how clean would the final data set of 17.6 million be? Because you have a mixture of data that I inputted myself, you have a mixture of data and mixed in with data that are coming from different sources, right? To be able to be pulled in this big data lake that is the PADU ecosystem, for them to be used in the subsidy targeting process. And then maybe the most important thing is this: what is the timeline? You've already said, okay, I'm going to close the window, I'm going to close the registration on the 31st of March. What then is your plan in terms of saying that I'm going to reduce the subsidy on petrol for everyone, and I'm going to give you back in the form of targeted subsidies? How much per month going to be given to which category of people? Is it going to be based on disposable income? Is it going to be based on other income measurements? All these things Rafizi has spoken about in directly or directly, but we actually haven't heard, most importantly, policy clarification from the most important ministry involved in this exercise, which is the Ministry of Finance. Because the subsidy rationalization process, ideally, it should be undertaken and should be under the charge of the Ministry of Finance, not the Ministry of Economy. The Ministry of Economy, I think, has done a good job in terms of putting itself in the front line, having skin on the game, like what we said, earlier in this episode, in terms of spearheading PADU,
Yeah.
right? But after that, after PADU has been rolled out, this database is been consolidated. I think it's time for the Ministry of Finance to step up and to take responsibility of the execution of the policy details from a subsidy rationalization standpoint.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, any other questions that you have in mind with regards to PADU?
Regarding PADU, I think I'm just very curious on why he doesn't really like explain on all this cybersecurity issue and so on. He just kind of like ignored to a certain extent.
I think he has tried. I think Fahmi Fadil has tried, in different statements. But I think, both of them are not cybersecurity experts. And there have been cybersecurity experts who have come up publicly to, highlight some of the challenges and some of the gaps. So in the interest of transparency, it would be good for there to be some sort of convening of different cybersecurity experts, have an honest conversation, maybe behind closed doors, and then come up with some sort of a method or some sort of explanation to say how we are going to make the process of safeguarding the data much more robust. And these are the gaps that were identified by the cybersecurity experts, and these are the ways that we are trying to undertake to address them. Right? So I don't see that process happening. Right? And it's because of certain, I think, insecurities on the part of some of the people in government.
Yeah. I think another thing is that I also do not know why this is a little bit funny in my opinion. You can only update your information once. Yeah, and there's already so much of distrust. Then you want to put it, I can only update it once, then I cannot update it ever again until you say I can.
Yeah, so what happens if
Who
let's
dare
say
to update it?
so what happens if let's say my rental income from a property that I own currently is 2,000 ringgit.
Correct.
What happens if let's say suddenly the tenant moves out and I'm not able to rent out that property for another year?
Yeah.
Right. So when and this will obviously affect my ability to get the subsidy.
Yeah, and imagine if let's say right now it's a good year for me, but maybe next year my company lay me off, and I couldn't get a job for the next half a year.
Sure.
And I had to sell a few of my properties, or I'm still struggling. I cannot update it. I'm still T20 database right now.
So ideally, if let's say the minister could come out with again an explanation to say that look, if you lose your job and you were EPF subscriber or whatever, don't worry, because we are updating information and data from EPF on a monthly basis. So if let's say this month you have your salary from EPF, next month you are laid off, you don't get a salary, the system will reflect that.
That's right.
Right. So maybe next month when you are you don't have a job, then you're eligible for the targeted subsidies. Or if let's say we see that 3 months in a row you haven't received any income because your EPF shows no contribution, then we'll give you 3 months worth of subsidy rationalization or targeted subsidies for the petrol.
That's
but
right.
none of these things have been communicated.
Yes, that's right.
So we are guessing. Your guess is as good as mine. Maybe my guess slightly better because I know the system a bit better, but not much better. Right? So you're leaving everyone guessing, and nobody is more assured after the PADU exercise.
Yeah, that's right. I think that's one of the main reasons. It's really not so much of whether are you T20 M40 and then you're afraid that subsidy is taken away. It's not so much of that. I think a lot of people have spoken up, including myself and many more that I know. They also did say that we don't mind it getting taken away. Yeah. I mean, it's not that I can hide. There's EPF. You already know that I already earn a certain amount, right? But the question is, how are you going to do it and what are the implications? Those are sort of things that maybe it's best to be communicated so people have the confidence in the system to cooperate.
And also as people in business, running companies, having to pay their staff and whatnot, people in the logistics sector and all that, you need time to plan in advance. If let's say the diesel price is going to go up, the petrol price is going to go up, we need to know these kinds of things in advance. Right? And like I said, it's not rocket science. These things, economists can actually be asked to help you to plan and calculate these kinds of things. Of course, the minister may not like economists very much, but you basically need people to do these kinds of calculations,
Yep.
right? And as a result, to make decisions based on those calculations, the best guess that you have, and this is where again, like I said, the Ministry of Finance needs to step in to take leadership of this issue. Yep. So yeah, whether or not you agree or disagree, please leave the comments below. And if you like our content, if you like the work that Peter and I are doing, please click like and subscribe. And this episode will be aired later this week. Next week is Raya month. Raya week. And we are not going to record next week, but we have a special guest that young, bright, articulate person, and you'll be able to hear her share her own views about what it means to be a young person active in politics.
Yep.
So thanks for all your support. We are more than 18,000 subscribers now.
Yes, we have just touched 18,000 subscribers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So with your help, we want to get it to 20,000.
20,000.
By the end of April.
That's right.
Yep. So please share with your friends. Click like and subscribe. Thank you very much for your support. See you soon.